the very early stages of Ritual, I think we were just really focused on creating something that our customers loved. And I think something that we did well was just catering to that early customer and being more concerned about making sure we were creating something that a small group of people loved than one that a much bigger group of people just, sort of liked. We only had one product, so we'd say, what do you not like about it? And then do our best to improve that aspect of the experience. And then I think we were also really focused on just adding different layers to this foundation of traceability. So giving her more reasons to believe in why Ritual is the highest quality product that she can buy. And this, does two things. Number one, it allows us to spend more. So we can sort of outspend competitors on CAC because the math works, right? The ROI is there for us to spend a little bit more to acquire a customer that's going to stick around for longer and spend more over their lifetime. But it also means that we've developed tools to drive growth that are not acquisition. So I think that's a discipline that many direct-to-consumer companies maybe don't build that muscle. And so acquisition is really their only path to growth. And I think that it's really strong focus on just making that first product like the absolute best product and most trusted product she could possibly consider went a long way in building trust and building this early foundation for the brand that's ultimately helped us grow and helped us scale. There's a few things I've learned about helping an organization scale. And one of them has to do with systems. So understanding what are the systems and what is the infrastructure that you sort of need to build ahead of time so that the organization can be most effective, and what are the systems that you can sort of grow into, and once you need them, implement them. I think there are some systems in a business like ours where by the time you're sure you need them, it's kind of too late. It'll take months, if not quarters, to implement them. So that's one learning. I think another, we've probably been guilty of this at Ritual in some respects, but is not calling a spade when something isn't working, or maybe taking too long to just say, hey, this isn't working, and we should stop doing it. I think the reason is because when you have folks on the team who have poured their heart and soul into a project, or it's someone's job, it can be really challenging to sort of face the music on that, because you don't want to suggest that the work hasn't been valuable and that you don't respect that someone's really given something their all. But sometimes you just have to say, hey, we tried, it didn't work. It's time to cut our losses and move on. That said, once you do that, it's such a sigh of relief, I think, and you realize, everyone in the organization sort of knew it wasn't working and it actually was not great for morale. So I think my advice to anyone in that situation is rip the Band-Aid and call a spade a spade. Often, some of the biggest decisions that you make in operating a business don't necessarily happen from this really linear headspace. You sort of are absorbing information every day and taking stock of the potential upside, the potential downside of a given situation, and then sort of ultimately make a decision based on your intuition. I think one of the biggest decisions we have made as a business in our history was the decision to extend our sales channels beyond Ritual.com. We had that discussion about, so is it direct to consumer forever, or does it ultimately go to retail? The real epiphany and decision that it was time to launch in new channels came from some really strong data about our consumer. We were able to define our growth consumer target based on demographic and psychographic traits that correlated very highly with the consumer that was actually buying on Ritual.com. What we saw in this big study we did on that consumer was that she actually over-indexed in shopping in other channels that were not direct from a brand's website. And we basically made the decision to meet her where she was and where she wanted to shop the brand. I think a mental model shift that probably a lot of folks who started in a really small organization that grew into a larger organization can relate to is just the realization that you can't do everything yourself and that you have to hire people and really evolve from being, a doer to a leader of leaders, and kind of what everyone needs from you in those different situations. So I think situational leadership is definitely something that is top of mind for me, sort of entering any kind of conversation. What are folks looking for from me in this specific situation? Am I a manager? Am I sort of setting the strategic compass for this group in this conversation? Do they just want a sounding board? Do they need my institutional knowledge? I'm the longest employee, I'm the longest tenured employee at this point, so I just know a lot about our history and kind of things that we've learned. It's interesting that owner's mentality and the way it manifests sort of evolves as the organization gets bigger. I think, part of it is you learn that if you're not sure who should do something, it's probably you. And whether it's you should do it yourself or you need to think about who you should hire that knows how to do X. And, in the very early days, those things were like putting paper in the printer, when there were printers in offices. And now it's like, reorienting our performance reporting around our product lines or something where you just sort of think, oh, we should do that. And then you kind of look around and you're like, oh, I should do that. Okay, let me go figure out how we do that. So I think that's kind of what the owner's mentality is just figuring it out and sort of leaning into that gray area where it's not clearly in anyone's job description, but I'm just gonna, grab the reins and kind of do it.